Ohio had already suspended. Now New Jersey has stopped legal wagering on Alabama baseball games. And Greg Sankey has released a statement to Outkick about this. I'm pulling it up now. And effectively what he said is, we are aware of reports related to the suspension of wagering in Alabama baseball games. We will continue to monitor information and any regulatory activity. As many states have acted to legalize sports gambling, we are reminded of the threats gambling may impose to competitive integrity. Together with our member universities, we will continue to emphasize the importance of regulating, overseeing, and providing education related to sports gambling activity. Don't think that Nick Saban won't say something on this if this could compromise the program in any way. Because if anybody is willing to throw other sports at his program under the bus, it's Nick Saban. And for the record, he should be willing to do that.
What are the chances that this turns into a big thing, Caleb, before we get to Tennessee not in the top 10 by some national media?
I think there's a very good chance it turns into a big thing. 2 separate states have done this now. I think I don't know if they're related, but I think we thought that the NCAA was going to look to make an example out of Tennessee with the football investigation, but there is some massive issues going on with Alabama athletics. From the Brandon Miller thing to the deputy athletic director having a domestic violence charge. And I shouldn't say Brandon Miller because he wasn't the one who fired the gun. Darius Miles, Brandon Miller, the basketball team's issue, basically. That we know the athletic department tried to cover up for a little while. Even however you feel Brandon Miller, whether or not you think he should have played, it's very clear the athletic department tried to shield him at all from his involvement and lied to the public. Then there's this deputy athletic director's domestic violence charge, and now this. I mean, there's something really rotten within the athletic department right now, and I think someone is going to look into it hard because that's why I think it's significant.
Well, with domestic violence charges, with Jalen McCullough, we saw this last year, there can be a huge gray area. So a lot of times if you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old guy that, listen, I take them very seriously, don't get me wrong, but there can be a gray area. And I remember Steve Spurrier said, if you ever hit a woman, you're not going to be on our team. And I completely adhere to that. However, there is a gray area. The problem I have is why I am more likely to jump to judgment, Caleb, is because this is a person in a leadership position. This is not the 18-year-old that we talked about at Georgia that used an Asian racial slang term. This is a person that is expected to be a leader in your athletic department. So to me, that's immediately a bigger deal. If the exact same story came out, domestic violence with a 19, 20-year-old player, I know he's surrounded by people that could potentially want to bait him. I'm not defending anyone in domestic violence. Please don't read that wrong. But I am telling you that if you're in a leadership position, it's a lot different. So go ahead and hit that like button so we can bring people on board. First person to post on our message board each and every day gets a t-shirt. We air live at 10 a.m. So we've got Travis taken care of. He'll get the t-shirt. He'll email me, and then we will be good to go. So what do you think Nick Saban will say about this, Caleb? I mean, what does he say? Because you said he would have a retort, and I believe that would be the case. If he does that, then what's the retort? What does he say? Because here's the crazy part about once you get that big, and Philip Fulmer got that big, no pun intended on weight. But I've been a fat guy, I can say that. So, I mean, but once you get so big and you have so much clout, the athletic department might have trouble reining you in. So in the early 2000s, I thought Tennessee had a discipline issue, and they had trouble reining it in. So Nick Saban has so much clout, you could call him and say, hey, don't say anything, Nick. We'd appreciate it if you just kind of keep quiet on this thing. And he could say, go stuff it. You didn't hire me. Yeah, I have more clout than you. I'll do whatever I want to. I'll call a local columnist if I want to and talk to them about the situation, because I've got to take this attention away for my program. Caleb, that could very well happen. And I agree with you. I think he will say something. I think he's probably the only coach in the SEC that has the clout, and one of the few coaches in the nation that has the clout to come out and say something, even though it's probably not in the athletic department's best interest.
Yeah, and so what I think is going to happen, I think he's going to stay quiet for a minute because I think he wants to let the investigation play out. I don't think he's stupid. He's not going to recklessly like mess up an investigation in any way. So he's going to let the investigation play out. Once it's resolved or anything comes to light about this, he's going to say something. And I agree. He has
He'll say something by the end of next week.
Oh, you're probably right. The only coach I know, and we've talked about this before, a coach having this level of power is always dangerous. The only coach I ever knew to have this level of power, having lived in Western Maryland, just south of Pennsylvania, was Joe Paterno, who was the most powerful person in the state of Pennsylvania. And we saw how that played out. But I will say, I don't think any coach should be that powerful. But I will say, I think if any coach is equipped to handle that level of power, it's Nick Saban more than Joe Paterno, who had all the power in the world, but didn't care if kids were being raped on his campus or and didn't even care to coach the games. And when I remember one of the administrators went to fire Joe Paterno in like 2003, and he said, "Get out of my house."
Yeah. So basically, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
So we're seeing clearly into the future what Nick Saban might say, and it's brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. I have no contacts. I have no glasses. How did I get away with that? I had LASIK, and it's awesome. Absolutely unbelievable. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn has cataract surgery available as well, and they've got their individual eye centers where they can take care of your annual visits. They're incredible. So what do you think Nick Saban might say? What do you think will be the tenor?
I think Nick Saban will straight up say, with our program, there is no gambling allowed. He'll volunteer it too, by the way. He might even he said there is nobody's allowed to gamble on sports within our program. Within our football program, if they do, they will be kicked off the team immediately. He's probably already called a team meeting about this. No, he can't, because I don't think coaches can meet with players, can they, once spring practice is over? But
no, they can.
They can
call a team meeting. Yeah,
he's probably already called a team meeting with his players, and he said, if one of you has a FanDuel account, you're off the team.
Like, yeah, you shouldn't have an account. Why in the world would you even have an account? If you're interested in spreads, you can go to ESPN.com. You don't have to have an account.
Well, a FanDuel account's to place bets, but I don't know if you can place bets in Alabama anyway.
No. That's what I mean. You shouldn't, if you're a player of any sport, college or pro, you shouldn't even have one of those accounts. And we're getting ready to work with a gambling site. And I would tell the guys we work with, Jacob and Cooper, the same thing. Don't even have an account. If you're curious as to spreads while you're playing, you can look it up on ESPN.com, but you don't need a FanDuel account.
No, you absolutely don't. And I guess the philosophy is you could use it to bet on other sports, but I would be like, if I were a coach, I would be like, no, you can't bet on any sport. No betting allowed. It's way too dangerous.
There's no question about it.